Let's continue looking at basic operation of UVs in Maya. I'm here in Maya 2022, and I'm going to create, let's say, our simple cube. To start with, I'm going to open up a hypershade window, which will allow me to make a material, and I'm going to set a simple texture on this material such that we can begin to see that in our UV editor. So let me see, I'm going to add this, if I can, dock it right there. There we go. So I'm going to create, let's just create a standard Lambert texture or Lambert material. I'm going to assign my object, right-click on the material, assign material to viewport selection. So now I've keyed this material to that object. And in the Lambert settings, I'm going to attach to the color, I'm going to click on this, add map, and choose a file. This is going to add a texture file, and I've downloaded something called a UVW texture, checkerboard texture. They're very common to find out in the world. I'm going to go ahead and load that in. So this is the texture that I have added. And the benefit of this texture is it allows me to understand relative scale of my UVs and texture space because I'm reading numbers, I'm seeing individual colored cells. I could compare this back to my texture that I loaded, and it allows me some visual assessment of my object and the materiality. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn on display the texture mapping. And in my viewport, I'm going to go ahead and turn on textured. So I can now see how 4, 5, 5, 6 relate in my UV to 4, 5, 5, 6. So this face right here is that face there. This face, 8, 1, 1, 2, 8, 1, 1, 2, that's this face here. And I think this can begin to help us perhaps see how specifically the texture maps to different coordinates in UV space. And if I create a few of my other objects, let's say a cylinder, and a sphere, and let me go ahead and assign and assign. So when I select my cylinder, there's the top 4, 5, 5, 6, 4, 5, 5, 6. The sides are very, very stretched. 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, or excuse me, 6, 7, 8, 1 is happening here, 6, 7, 8, 1. So I can begin to understand how that maps. And when I look at my sphere, I can see where the polar distortion is happening. Up at the very top, these numbers here, this row, are being pinched very tight, and at the bottom, the same thing. Now, if I were to select my cylinder, and in my UV editor, I can right-click, just as I would in my regular viewport, to select sub-objects like vertices and faces and polygons. I can select shells. In UV, the shells are the freestanding components of a kind of UV space. If I were to select this shell and move it so that it is at, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, I can begin to see how that reflects in my shaded viewport. So this allows me to understand how moving it through UV space is going to change the texture that is assigned to it. And if I wanted to resolve some of the, or mitigate some of the issues with stretching around my drum, I could select this shell and scale it in my UV editor such that it is not as distorted. And notice I can also overlap if I choose my texture coordinates. If I wanted these shells to be in the same place, there's nothing saying as far as textural information goes, that they can't occupy the same space on a model. If I want unique information for each of these shells, I will need to have them be separated, but I can certainly use my tools of rotate, scale, and move to adjust how they fit within this space from 0, 0 to 1, 1. That's always my texture space that I have developed for projecting textures onto my models.